You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That quote is directly from one of the greatest ice hockey players of all time, and his name is Wayne Gretzky. Now, you're probably wondering, like I was, when was ice hockey invented and how was it invented? Well, it's actually impossible to know the exact birth date of ice hockey due to the fact that there's records of people participating in different forms of hockey dating back to about 4,000 years ago. But more recently, J.G. Creighton was a Canadian from Nova Scotia who created the first set of ice hockey rules about 140 years ago. Ice hockey is known as Canada's national sport, and there's a very good reason for that. Canada contributed the most to the growth of the actual sport itself over this entire time period of ice hockey being played. Now, the NHL, which is a North American hockey league, is the highest level and most popular form of men's hockey. There is also another league known as the KHL, and that is a European league where a lot of Russian, Czechoslovakian, players from the other countries play in, and that's known as the Continental Hockey League. Ice hockey was introduced in the Olympics in 1908, and it was dropped in 1912 due to getting replaced by other sports. It was picked back up in 1920 and was rejected once again, and then it finally re-entered back in 1928. Women's ice hockey was actually not picked up in the Olympics until 1980. Now, there are different forms of hockey. There is roller hockey, ice hockey, field hockey, and floor hockey. Now, for roller hockey, it's the same as ice hockey. Both are played on skates, except for roller, you're playing on roller skates. And instead of an ice, you're going to be playing on asphalt or like a hard plastic flooring. Then there's field hockey, where you play in a football field or a lacrosse field, and you play with a ball instead of a puck, and you'll play with a different type of stick. It's flat on the front and curved in the back. And then there's floor hockey, which I've talked about in the past. It's played the same way, except you play it on feet instead of being on skates or ice skates. Now, the stuff that you'll need in order to play ice hockey would be skates, sticks, and protective equipment. And the players score by shooting the puck in the opposing goalie or opposing player's net past their goalie. And there are different categories for players' statistics, which breaks down into goals and assists. Now, goals are very simple. You shoot it and you score on the goalie. That's a goal. And then the assist is actually when you pass it to another player who ends up shooting it past their goalie, and you get an assist on the actual goal. Now, for ice hockey and any form of hockey, there are 6 players on the ice at all times. That would include 5 skaters and a goalie. There are 3 20-minute periods, and there's also penalties included as well. Now, the penalties that are included are high sticking, which would be raising your stick above your shoulders and hitting another player in the face. Tripping, where you trip another player with your stick. Interference, which would be getting in the way of another player when they are not around the puck at all. There's fighting, cross-checking. Cross-checking would be grabbing your stick with 2 hands and hitting the player just like so. And then there's also penalties that are not really detrimental to your team, but that would be offsides, where there are 2 blue lines, and if you have a player pass the blue line in the opposing player's zone and you bring the puck over, that would be considered offsides. And then there's also icing, and that's if you have even strength on both sides, which would be 5 skaters and a goalie, and then 5 skaters and a goalie, and you shoot the puck down. That would be considered icing. Now, there are different levels of penalties, and that would include the minor, which is a 2-minute penalty that's served by the player that commits the actual penalty itself. And then there's a double minor, which is a 4-minute penalty, which would be served by the same player if they commit that penalty. Now, a minor is such as like a regular high sticking call or a tripping call, and your team is shorthanded for those 2 minutes. Now, shorthanded means you're down 1 player, so you would have 4 skaters and a goalie compared to the other team, which would have 5 skaters and a goalie. And the double minor is the exact same thing, except it's a 4-minute penalty, and if the other team scores within the first 2 minutes of the double minor, then you still have 2 more minutes to serve. The next penalty would be a major penalty, and that's a 5-minute penalty. Usually a major penalty is a fighting penalty, and both teams players who are in the fight serve those penalties, and there's not really any shorthanded team during that period. The next penalty would be a misconduct. A misconduct is a 10-minute penalty where you have to stay out of the game for the entire 10 minutes. Finally, the last penalty would be a game misconduct. Now, game misconduct means you have to sit out of the game entirely for any remaining periods, and you cannot come back into play. Hopefully I was able to teach you a little bit about hockey. There's a lot more to it, but those are just the basics and kind of just where it all started from. Thank you.